Hey, it's Matt with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Tuesday. It's November 16th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And I thought I'd start out by showing you our daily chart. You can see that we're still in this blue two-tiered channel here. We did bounce off that trend line a couple of times and continue to push higher. Today we topped out right at the midline. So we'll see where this thing continues to go, but as of right now, I would say we're still headed higher. Will we make a new high here? We'll have to see. If we get a measured move based on this first move up, we're looking at a target up here at, let's just see what that target is. I forget what it is. Somewhere around 48.14 or so, maybe 15. So that's where we're likely headed if we continue higher. That would be my first target. Obviously, this high is our first target. And if we continue on, we'll see if we can get there or not. Things have definitely slowed down at these price levels. I mean, we're bumping on the door of 4,700, and a lot of times prices will test those century levels, those 100 marks. They'll test them on both sides a few times before they move on. But this was a really large move, large and fast move. In times, very crazy economic times to boot. So no surprise that we're running out of a little steam up here. But we'll see what happens. As of right now, it looks like we're going higher. We could turn down at any time and get a break here. But as of now, this spiking channel sure seems to still be in play. And actually, this thing has moved a little bit. It looks a little more accurate there, maybe. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, let's go over to the 2000 tick chart and we'll talk about our trades. Real quickly before we get into today's chart lesson, if you were wondering why you couldn't find a chart lesson yesterday, if you didn't get word, my internet was out. The power company was doing some digging around here and cut the main AT&T trunk and knocked my internet out. That just gave me an excuse to find an alternate backup plan. So I do have a backup plan in place going forward if that happens again, and I haven't had a chance to test it yet. I just got the equipment to do that, and we'll see if that how that works out. But hopefully that'll be a good backup. It's a pretty simple idea. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get for my desktop, I'm going to get a USB Wi-Fi adapter, and if power drops out like that again, I can still access everything on my main computer through that Wi-Fi and connect into my phone's hotspot. So I did that with my laptop yesterday and was able to at least answer a few emails and get the word out that my internet was down. But that's why there was no chart lesson yesterday, because I only have my recording software on this computer, and I couldn't get it connected to the internet. I tried a few different things and just couldn't get it to work. So anyway, I have ordered that part and that Wi-Fi, USB Wi-Fi, and hopefully we'll be back up and running going forward. If that ever happens again. I mean, really, I've been doing this a lot of years, and one time my power was out for a day or two during an ice storm or something, and one other time same type thing happened. Somehow or another they cut the cable and the internet was out here, and it took them a couple of days to get it repaired. But that's only happened maybe twice in 20 years to me. Now I have had some times where it stormed and power went out or internet was down for 30 minutes or an hour, but it comes right back, so it's not debilitating like it would be if it's down for a day or two. So hopefully we won't have that issue going forward. Hopefully my backup plan will suffice and take care of it. But let's talk about today's trades. There's not a lot of trades today. There was some really good movement this afternoon, but we spent a lot of this day going sideways. Really from just after 8:30 to maybe just for the first hour there, basically we went sideways and then it shot straight up. And then from about 10 o'clock to almost noon, it just chopped sideways, and then it continued on up a little weakly, and then we corrected down the rest of the day. So even though there was some really good movement from the 8:30 open to the highs, we just still there's still not a lot of trades in here, just not a lot of good opportunities. So anyway, let's back out or zoom in, and we'll go through the trades. And I always feel like I'm backing out to do this, but technically I'm zooming in. So we're zooming in here to make this a little bit bigger. But early on, as you can see, we're just kind of working sideways. And we had a trend up here. We had a close outside. I didn't draw some of this on here early, but it's there. I mean, you can clearly see that trend working up right there. You get a close outside, a couple legs up to a new high, and then we got a two-legged correction before the right into the 8:30 open, and that's when the rally started. But you can see we had this trend working up. We got the close outside. And we really kind of chopped sideways in this tight range, and we had a failed breakout. But we also had the close outside and two legs up to a new high, and a big bearish bar a little ways away from the EMA. That's almost a gimme type trade right there. I like that setup a lot. And it actually broke higher and turned down. And there was a little bit of a gap there, like maybe it was trying to fill that gap. This thing, I like going short just to ride it back to the EMA if nothing else, but you could have got a lot more out of that trade, and you would have got a runner on this most likely. And there's a lower high right here on a pullback, but I don't think you want to enter right there. It's a fairly bearish bar, but I want to see prices try to go higher twice. And they do right here. So now you got a failed second entry long, plus you got a second entry short, and that's a fairly bearish bar. I like that little entry, and it's a quick move down. Doesn't get much out of it, but quick, easy. You may not have been able to get in that either because it gapped and dropped real fast. Most likely there's some longs trapped right there that had to exit real quick, and once their stops were all run, it turns higher from there. But I draw my trend line off those first two swings. And then we get a higher low right here. This is not an ideal setup. It is a higher low. Okay, I'm sorry. I had a little interruption there. I should have turned my phone off. I forgot to. But anyway, we bounce off. We draw your trend line here, and then we come back, and it looks like we probably bounce off of it again right there. My trend line, you could adjust it just a hair, and it'd be bouncing off. But it's a higher low. The problem is it's into the EMA. It's just not an ideal setup. I'd rather see the reversal, which we do get a reversal right here, but it doesn't break lower. It still makes a lower high and pulls back and kisses that EMA and takes off. If this would have broken lower, that would have been the ideal place to enter, and that's a great setup. But the way it sets right there, it's just an inside bar, and it doesn't break lower, so you don't truly get a failed second entry short. So, but it basically sets up the same way right there. And another thing too, as the open at 8:30 was here, and here's the close from Friday, there's a good chance prices are going to try to fill that. So that's another reason I like this trade, because you would expect prices to come back and try to fill that, test that close from Friday. It's like a little gap. That's the way I've always treated it. And prices almost always want to come back and retest that. And a lot of times they might turn lower from there, but in here they don't. They just shoot right on through and keep going. That's because it's going to be an up day, but at this point, you don't know that until it starts happening. So I like that entry. It's a little aggressive and it's not perfect, but it's one you may consider. And again, here, if this would have broken lower, that's the trade to take, but it doesn't do that. But if you wait a few minutes, quickly you get a second entry long right here with a nice bar. It is a little bit congested, but this was a strong move, and we couldn't even get back to the EMA, and prices tried to go lower once, twice, three times, four times, five times, and then you get this bullish bar, and it actually breaks lower first and turns up. So it's a little bit engulfing, and it probably traps a lot of traders. So as long as you got room back to these highs, that's a trade you probably want to take. And of course, we do make a new high. It looks like we're going to really sell off, and we just kind of bounce along. this technically is a failed second entry short here, but that's really congested, and that's a huge bar. I mean, there's 16 ticks in that bar, and that is very congested, and so it's not a trade I really think you want to take. But if you wait a minute, notice you got a double bottom, you get a first entry, second entry, and notice that's a double kiss off that midline and the EMA. And again, it breaks lower first, and if it breaks higher there, it's probably going to trap some shorts. And sure enough, it does. There's a second entry short here, but this is an uptrend. I'd want a lower high here to enter, and you get one here, but that's just right in the midline, right at the EMA, and then your failure's way down here right into support, which notice what happens. That becomes a failed breakout real quickly. Just kind of going sideways, and it tries to go lower again and makes a double bottom or higher low, and again it breaks lower and turns up. So it's not, again, it's not an ideal setup, but it pretty much does confirm that trend line. Really, I think it was confirmed here. So it's another bounce right off the trend line. So I like going long there. It would have been nice if it would have broke lower and given you a higher low, but it doesn't. And once again, it's just almost a repeat pattern of what happened right here. And if you recognize that, take that trade. And really, you could look at that as a double top, so a first entry, second entry. Technically, it's not because it doesn't make an equal high, but you can see that sideways stuff and then a couple of little legs down, and man, it's off to the races again. And then it does the same thing. It just kind of works sideways for a little bit. You get a double test here. Notice we made the low right there. We test it once, twice. It's not a perfect signal bar, so I'm not crazy about it. And then we actually do get a higher low here on a failed second entry. This is a double bottom, so first entry, second entry. As long as you got room to get out, you may have to use a limit order. I'm not sure if there's enough room there on that trade. I think there is, but I wouldn't swear to it. Yep, there's 6 ticks there, so it's just enough room. So you could enter that with a buy stop. You still might use a limit order just to get a little better entry. And then we just kind of keep chopping higher, but I don't really see anything I like here. This is a breakout pullback long, but that's congestion right there. And we just broke out of this, so it could tick higher and fail and come back down. You would expect prices to come back to this trend line soon because we just came off that high. And so you need a really good setup to enter long over here, and I just don't see one. And you can see it's not long before we back off and come back to the trend line. It's tempting to want to go long right there, but those are just up down bars, and they're both inside bars, so not very good setup. Of course, there is a higher low here, but it's right after 230, and it's not a failure really. It's still below the EMA, and you can see it didn't go very far and it sells off. So just not a very good setup there. Really, this whole afternoon, there's not a very good setup. This was really your last gasp opportunity for a trade, and it's just too, again, what you're expecting here from this point is for prices to come back to here. So you got to be really careful taking any longs. Out of here, you could play the range, but here you're back in the trend. It is a little spike and channel up, but it's not a very, you can just tell that prices are struggling to go higher, and there's just no setups. You don't want to go long into this resistance. And then once it breaks higher, it soon runs out of steam, and you're headed lower. Now, that tells you when it shoots right through like that and pulls back, and notice what it's doing. It's pulling back and testing that midline and the EMA. That's tempting right there if that wasn't an inside bar. I still think you need to wait on a failure, which comes here, but it's not back to the EMA. Again, it's congestion, and I just don't see anything there. We had a few trades early, and then so if you had a hard time finding a trade up here, that's because there weren't many. Just wasn't a very good trading day. So, but anyway, I think I already mentioned about my internet yesterday and why there was no chart lesson if you were looking for one. So I believe I'm back in business now, and sorry for the day down there. Makes it for a short week for us. But anyway, hope you had a good trading day. Hope you made it without me yesterday. And if you didn't get the word, I apologize. Sometimes if you're looking for the the YouTube lesson, you don't see it, you might just check our website to see if I've posted anything there as regards to being gone or on vacation or whatever, or being out for the day or anything like that. So usually I'll give you a heads up in the previous video, but when it's emergency like that, there's just not much more I can do than post something on the website. And if you don't go by there and check, you may wonder what happened. But anyway, you can always check on our website, priceactiontrading.com. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with priceactiontrading.com, and we'll see you next